The great assembly hall had never been so quiet. 200 species sat in their designated chambers, and not one of them made a sound. The silence was heavy, like a blanket made of fear. Ambassador the Karn stood at the central platform. His forearms trembled slightly as he held the data pad. His compound eyes swept across the assembled representatives, seeing the same thing in every face: terror. The holographic display behind him showed the latest reports. Red markers covered nearly half the known galaxy. Each marker represented a fallen world. The Vertoxian swarm has taken another 12 systems, the Karn said. His translator made his clicking language into words everyone could understand. Our combined fleets engaged them at the corridor of stars. We lost 400 ships. They lost none. A representative from the Molthar Collective stood up. She was tall and covered in blue scales. How is this possible? We have the best weapons in the galaxy. We have shields that can withstand starfire. The swarm adapts, the Karn replied. Every weapon we use against them, they learn to counter. Every tactic we employ, they overcome. They do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They consume everything in their path. The Molthar representative sat down slowly. Her scales had turned pale gray, the color of fear for her species. Chancellor Vex Thor called for order. He was old, even for his long-lived species. His silver skin had turned almost white with age. We must face the truth. At current projections, the swarm will reach the core worlds in 18 months. In 3 years, the Concordat will cease to exist. Panic erupted. Representatives shouted in hundreds of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. Some were calling for evacuation. Others demanded suicide protocols. A few simply wept. There is one option, the Karn said quietly. The hall fell silent again. Everyone turned to look at him. No, someone whispered. You cannot be serious, another said. The Karn straightened all 4 of his arms. I propose we contact humanity. The reaction was immediate. Half the assembly stood up, shouting. The other half sat frozen in shock. Chancellor Vex Thor had to activate the sonic dampeners to restore order. That is forbidden, a representative from the Yith Dominion declared. The humans were quarantined for good reason. Have you forgotten the incident of Terra Prime? I have forgotten nothing, the Karn replied. I was there. I saw what they did. 500 years ago, a human colony on Terra Prime had been attacked by raiders. The raiders had killed 3,000 colonists. They thought they were dealing with a weak, isolated settlement. They were wrong. The human response had been swift and absolute. They tracked the raiders across 7 systems. They did not just defeat them. They erased them. Every ship, every base, every trace of the raider clans was destroyed in a campaign that lasted only 6 weeks. The humans called it a police action. The galaxy called it genocide. The humans are dangerous, the Karn continued. They do not think like we do. When we are attacked, we defend. When they are attacked, they destroy. They do not accept defeat. They do not know when to stop. They are relentless. Exactly why we quarantined them, the Yith representative shouted. Exactly why we need them now, the Karn said quietly. The hall erupted again. Arguments flew back and forth. Some species threatened to leave the Concordat if humans were contacted. Others, those whose worlds were closest to the swarm's advance, began to speak in favor of the proposal. Chancellor Vex's Thor raised his hand. Let us be clear about what we are discussing. The humans were quarantined because they are the most aggressive species ever discovered. They evolved on a death world. They had to fight for every scrap of survival. They do not have our sense of proportion. When threatened, they respond with overwhelming force. They make war in ways we find horrifying. The swarm is horrifying, a small voice said. Everyone turned. It was Ambassador Kree of the Gentle Folk. Her species was known for their pacifism. They had no military of their own. The swarm has taken my home world. My entire family is gone. 4 billion of my people are dead or assimilated. If the humans can stop this, if they can save even one world from what happened to mine, then I vote yes. The hall was silent. The humans have been alone for 5 centuries, the Karn said. We do not know what they have become. They may refuse to help. They may have forgotten us. But we must try. Chancellor Vex Thor called for a vote. It took 3 hours. The debate was fierce. In the end, the proposal passed by a margin of only 7 votes. The preparations took 2 days. A message probe was prepared. It contained a simple request. The galaxy is dying. We need your help. Will you answer? The Karn stood in the launch bay as the probe was loaded into its tube. A young intern approached him. She was from his own species, her carapace still bright green with youth. Ambassador, are you certain this is wise? She asked. What if the humans have become even more dangerous during their isolation? What if they blame us for the quarantine? The Karn watched the probe being sealed. Then we will face that consequence. But consider this. The swarm will destroy us all with absolute certainty. The humans might destroy us. I will take might over certain any day. The probe launched. It accelerated beyond light speed, heading toward the edge of the galaxy, toward the Sol exclusion zone, toward Earth. The Karn stood at the observation window long after the probe had vanished. Behind him, the galaxy was burning. Ahead, in the darkness, was humanity. He had seen what humans could do when provoked. 500 years ago, he had watched them wage war with a cold precision that terrified every species in the Concordat. They had not been cruel. They had been efficient. Somehow, that was worse. Now, the galaxy was about to learn if that fear had been justified, or if it had not been fear enough. The warning buoy detected the probe 3 days before it reached the boundary of the Sol system. Alarms sounded across Earth's defense network for the first time in 2 centuries. Admiral Jessica Chen was in her garden when the call came. She had been tending her roses, enjoying the morning sunlight. The garden was her escape from the weight of command. She looked at her communicator and sighed. The peaceful moment was over. 20 minutes later, she stood in the Terran Defense Council chamber. The room was deep beneath Geneva, protected by layers of steel and stone. Holographic displays showed the approaching probe. Military officials and civilian leaders filled the seats around the circular table. It is definitely from the Concordat, Captain Park reported. He was the officer in charge of the border monitoring stations. The signature matches their old communication protocols. The probe is broadcasting a repeating message. Play it, Chen ordered. The message was simple. A voice spoke in the old galactic common language. Chen's translator converted it to English. The galaxy is dying. We need your help. Will you answer? The room erupted in conversation. Some voices were angry. Others were excited. A few were afraid. Quiet, Chen said. She did not raise her voice. But everyone stopped talking. They quarantined us. They said we were too dangerous to be part of their peaceful galaxy. They said we were monsters. Now they want our help? Director Williams from the Diplomatic Corps leaned forward. He was an old man with white hair and tired eyes. We need to know what is happening out there. The probe's message is vague. What threat could be so terrible that they would break 500 years of silence? Let me tell the probe to send full data, Captain Park suggested. Chen nodded. Do it. But keep all weapons systems active. This could be a trap. It took 30 minutes for the exchange. The probe transmitted everything. Battle reports, casualty lists, footage of the swarm's attacks. The Council watched in silence as the holographic displays showed world after world falling to the biomechanical horrors. My God, someone whispered. The Vertaxian swarm was like nothing humanity had ever seen. They were part organic, part machine. They did not kill for resources or territory. They consumed everything. Life, technology, even the planets themselves. They left nothing behind, but empty husks floating in space. They have lost 40% of the galaxy, Captain Park said. His voice was shaky. At current rates, the Concordat will be extinct in 3 years. Chen studied the footage. She watched how the swarm attacked. She watched how the Concordat defended. She saw the problem immediately. They are fighting the wrong kind of war, she said. What do you mean? Williams asked. Look at their tactics. They establish defensive lines. They wait for the enemy to attack. When they lose a position, they retreat to the next line. They are fighting to survive. What else would they fight for? To win, Chen said simply. They are not attacking the enemy's home territory. They are not hunting down their supply lines. They are not making the swarm afraid. Can the swarm even feel fear? Someone asked. Chen smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Everything can feel fear. You just need to find the right way to teach it. The debate lasted for hours. Some council members argued that humanity should ignore the request. The Concordat had abandoned them. Let them face the consequences. Others argued for helping. If the swarm consumed the Concordat, they might turn toward the Sol system next. But most of the debate centered on one question. What kind of people were humans really? For 500 years, humanity had been alone. They had built a paradise in the Sol system. Earth was green and healthy again. Mars was terraformed. The asteroid belt was full of stations and habitats. Billions of people lived in comfort and peace, but they remembered the old days. They remembered the wars. They remembered the violence that had marked humanity's early history. They remembered Terra Prime. We defended that colony, General Torres said. He was the oldest person in the room, over 100 years old. The raiders killed 3,000 civilians, families, children. We tracked them down and made sure they could never hurt anyone again. The Concordat called it excessive, Williams said quietly. They said we went too far. We made sure the threat was ended, Torres replied. That is what you do when someone attacks your people. You make sure they cannot do it again. Chen had been silent for a long time. Now she stood up. Everyone turned to look at her. Chen had been silent. I have a question for all of you, she said. What if the Concordat was right? What if we are monsters? The room was silent. I have studied our history. Chen continued. I have read about the wars we fought, the terrible things we did to each other. We were violent. We were aggressive. We solved problems with force. Maybe the Concordat was right to be afraid of us. She walked around the table, looking at each person. But I have also read about the other things we did. We protected the weak. We fought against injustice. We never gave up, even when everything seemed hopeless. Yes, we are dangerous. But we are dangerous to those who threaten innocent people. The Concordat pushed us away because they were afraid. Now, they need exactly what they feared. So you are saying we should help them? Williams asked. I am saying we should help the billions of innocent people who are dying. The Concordat government may have wronged us, but the civilians being consumed by the swarm have done nothing to us. And more than that. Chen paused. For 500 years, we have wondered if we were truly monsters. If the galaxy was right to fear us, this is our chance to find out who we really are. The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, the first fleet launched from Luna shipyard. 500 warships, carrying 100,000 military personnel. The ships were sleek and powerful. Built during the long years of isolation. Humanity had not stopped developing weapons technology just because they had no one to fight. Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable. Through the viewports, she could see the other ships forming up. Destroyers, carriers, battleships, and the troop transports carrying the Marines. Set course for the coordinates the Concordat provided, she ordered. Course laid in, Admiral. The navigation officer replied. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. 500 years ago, we were cast out. Today, we go back. Not as the monsters they feared, not as the warriors they rejected. We go back as protectors. The galaxy is burning, and we are going to save it. Whether they want us to or not. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Ahead, the galaxy waited, and the swarm had no idea what was coming for them. Haven 7 was a neutral station, floating at the border of contested space. It had been built as a diplomatic outpost, a place where different species could meet safely. Now, it served as a temporary military headquarters. The station's corridors were filled with wounded soldiers and refugees. Admiral Chen walked through those corridors with her command staff. She noticed how the alien civilians reacted to her presence. Parents pulled their children closer. Soldiers gripped their weapons tighter. Fear was obvious in every face, regardless of species. "They are terrified of us," Captain Park whispered. "They asked us to come," Chen replied. Fear and need make strange companions. The conference room was large enough to hold representatives from 30 different species. When Chen entered, the room fell silent. Every eye turned toward her. She saw the fear. She also saw the desperation. Ambassador the Karn stood at the head of the table. Chen recognized his species from the historical records. Chelarii. 4 arms, compound eyes, a hard carapace. He looked old. His shell had lost its shine. "Admiral Chen," the Karn said. His translator turned his clicks and chirps into English. "Thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult. Let us skip the pleasantries," Chen said. She moved to the holographic display at the center of the table. "Show me everything." Chen. For the next 2 hours, the Concordat military commanders presented their intelligence. Chen watched footage of dozens of battles. She studied the swarm's tactics. She reviewed casualty reports and tactical analyses. The other humans in her command staff remained silent, but Chen could see their reactions. Shock at the swarm's ferocity, disgust at the biomechanical horrors, and something else. Anger. "You have been fighting this war for 2 years, Chen said when the presentation ended. "You have lost hundreds of worlds and billions of lives, but you have never once attacked their territory." Commander Zaltesh of the Molthar Collective stiffened. "We have focused on defense, on protecting our civilians, on evacuation, when necessary. You have focused on losing slowly," Chen said bluntly. The room erupted. Alien officers shouted in protest. Chen waited for them to quiet down. "I am not insulting your courage," she continued. "Your soldiers have fought bravely. But you are fighting the wrong war. You build defensive lines, and the swarm breaks through them. You evacuate worlds, and the swarm follows. You retreat, and they advance. This will not change until you make them stop." "How do you make them stop?" the Karn asked quietly. "You find their homeworld and destroy it," Chen said. The silence that followed was absolute. The aliens stared at her, as if she had suggested drinking poison. "That is impossible," Zaltesh said. "We do not know where their homeworld is. Even if we did, we do not have the forces to mount such an attack. We need every ship to defend our remaining territory." "Then you will lose," Chen said simply. "Defense alone never wins wars. You must take the fight to them. Make them defend. Make them afraid. The swarm does not feel fear." Another commander said. "Everything feels fear," Chen replied. "You just need to teach them properly." She brought up a new display. It showed the human battle doctrine. The aliens leaned forward to study it. "This is insane," Zaltesh said. "You are proposing boarding actions against swarm ships? Fighting them in close quarters?" "Yes. You are proposing kamikaze attacks? Deliberately sacrificing ships to achieve objectives? If necessary, you are proposing fighting to the death rather than retreating?" "Always." Zaltesh sat back. His scales had turned the pale gray of fear. "You truly are what we feared. We are what you need, Chen corrected. The Karn raised one of his four hands. Admiral, we asked for your help with a specific mission. The swarm is advancing on the refuge cluster. 7 inhabited worlds. 2 billion civilians. We need time to evacuate them. We hoped your fleet could provide a diversion. Chen studied the tactical map. The refuge cluster was surrounded on 3 sides by swarm territory. The evacuation route was narrow and vulnerable. You want us to attack the swarm fleet here, she pointed at a location on the map. Draw their attention while your transport ships escape. Yes, the Karn said. We need 72 hours. Can you hold them for that long? No, Chen said. The hope in the room died. We cannot hold them for 72 hours, Chen continued. Because we will not be holding. We will be attacking. Captain Park. Analysis, please. Park stepped forward. He highlighted several points on the map. The swarm has concentrated 400 ships for the assault on the refuge cluster. Their supply ships are here, 30 light-years behind the main fleet. Their command ship is here, in the center of the formation. The rotor, 1 reservation, when the town U.S. Co. 1 reservation, 1 reservation, 1 reservation. We will hit the supply ships first, Chen said. Destroy their logistics. Then we will strike at their command ship. Cut off the head. You have 500 ships, Zaltesh said. They have 400. But swarm ships are larger and more powerful than yours. This is suicide. This is war, Chen replied. And we are very good at it. She turned to address all the commanders. You asked us to provide a distraction. We will do better. We will break the swarm's attack completely. Your transports will have all the time they need for evacuation. But we need intelligence. We need to know everything about the swarm's command structure, their communication systems, their weaknesses. We will provide everything we have, the Karn promised. The meeting continued for several more hours. Plans were made. Resources were allocated. The aliens remained skeptical, but they agreed to the human strategy. They had no other choice. As the meeting ended, the Karn approached Chen privately. Admiral, I must ask, why are you doing this? We quarantined your people. We called you monsters. You have no reason to help us. Chen looked at the old ambassador. She saw the weight he carried, the guilt, the fear, the desperate hope. 500 years ago, we did something terrible to protect our people, she said. You judged us for it. Maybe you were right. Maybe we went too far. We have spent 5 centuries wondering if we were the villains of that story. She looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. But now, we have a chance to be something else. To use our violence for protection instead of revenge. To be the heroes instead of the monsters. You gave us that chance, Ambassador. Whether you meant to or not. The Karn was silent for a long moment. I was there, you know, at Terra Prime. I saw what you did to the Raiders. And I never told anyone this, but I thought you were right to do it. The Raiders had killed so many innocents. They would have killed more. You stopped them permanently. The rest of the Concordat was horrified by your methods, but I understood them. I just never had the courage to say so. And now? Now I am grateful beyond words that you are here, the Karn said. The galaxy needs monsters, Admiral. We just needed them to be our monsters, not someone else's. Chen smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator preparing to hunt. Then you are about to get what you need, Ambassador. Tell your people to evacuate quickly. In 72 hours, the swarm is going to learn why the Concordat was afraid of us. And they are going to wish they had never attracted our attention. She walked away, her command staff following. Behind her, the Karn watched through the viewport as the human fleet prepared for battle. The ships moved with precise coordination. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time. The galaxy was about to remember what humanity could do when it went to war. and the swarm had no idea what was coming. The battle began exactly as planned. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed, directly on top of the swarm's supply ships. The aliens had not expected an attack so deep in their territory. They had grown comfortable. That was their first mistake. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as her ships tore through the swarm's logistics train. Missiles and energy beams destroyed transport after transport. Within 20 minutes, the swarm's supply line was gone. "They are responding," Captain Park reported. "The main fleet is turning around." "Good," Chen said. "They are angry now. Angry enemies make mistakes." The swarm fleet was massive. 400 ships, each one larger than Chen's biggest battleship. They moved like a single organism, responding instantly to changes in the battle. The aliens had been right about one thing. The swarm was powerful. But the swarm had never fought humans before. "All ships, execute pattern Delta 7, Chen ordered. The human fleet scattered. Instead of forming a defensive line, like the Concordate forces always did, they split into dozens of small groups. Each group moved independently, striking at different targets, and then disappearing before the swarm could respond. The swarm tried to adapt. They split their own forces to chase the human groups. That was their second mistake. "Now," Chen said quietly, 3 human battleships that had been hiding behind a dead moon suddenly appeared. They accelerated at maximum speed directly toward the swarm's command ship. Point defense systems destroyed 2 of them, but the third got through. It did not fire weapons. Instead, it rammed the command ship at near-light speed. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. The swarm fleet faltered. For the first time in the war, they hesitated. Their perfect coordination was gone. They were confused. Chen pressed the advantage. "All wings. Full assault." What followed was chaos. Human ships dove into the swarm formation. They targeted engines, weapons, anything that looked important. When ships were too damaged to fight, their crews aimed them at enemy vessels and evacuated. Every loss for the humans cost the swarm multiple ships, but the swarm was learning. They began to predict human tactics. They set traps. They used their superior numbers to surround isolated human groups. The cruiser Defiant found itself cut off from the rest of the fleet. 20 swarm ships closed in for the kill. The cruiser's captain, Commander Liu, did not attempt to escape. "All hands, prepare for boarding action," she ordered. The aliens monitoring the battle could not believe what they were hearing. Humans did not board swarm ships. It was suicide. The swarm's interior was a nightmare of organic weapons and adaptive defenses. Commander Liu did not care. When the swarm ships closed in, she deliberately let them grab her vessel with their biomechanical tentacles. Then she detonated explosive charges all over the hull. The blasts ripped open both ships. Marine teams in combat armor poured through the gaps. They fought the swarm creatures in the dark, twisted corridors. It was close combat, brutal and personal. Humans died, but they killed more than they lost. "This is insane," Zaltesh said from his command ship. He was watching the human tactics with horror. "They are fighting inside the swarm ships. They are using enemy weapons against them. They are winning," the Karn said quietly. It was true. The Defiance Marines had reached the core of one swarm ship. They found something the Concordate had never discovered: a biological control center. The swarm ships were not just technology, they were alive. "Central Command, this is Marine Captain Okonkwo," a voice came over the communication channel. "We have found something interesting. The ship has a brain. A literal brain. We are uploading data now." The information reached every human ship instantly. Now, they knew where to strike. Now they knew how to kill the swarm ships permanently. The battle turned into a slaughter. But the swarm had one more surprise. A massive ship appeared at the edge of the system. It was 10 times larger than anything else on the battlefield. Sensors could barely comprehend what they were seeing. It was part ship, part creature, part something else entirely. That must be a hive mother, Park said. Intelligence reports mentioned them, but we have never seen one. The hive mother began spawning smaller ships, hundreds of them. They poured out of its body, like insects, from a nest. All ships, fall back to defensive formation, Chen ordered. For the first time in the battle, the human fleet retreated. They formed a sphere around the transport ships, carrying evacuated civilians. The Concordat officers watching felt a mix of relief and disappointment. Finally, the humans were being sensible. Finally, they were accepting that some battles could not be won. Then Chen gave her next order. Activate Project Trojan. 50 human ships broke formation. They were older vessels, mostly transports and supply ships. They accelerated toward the hive mother at maximum speed. What are they doing? Zaltesh demanded. Watch and learn, the Karn said. The hive mother's tentacles reached out and grabbed the approaching ships. It began to consume them, breaking them down for resources. That was what it always did. That was how the swarm grew. But these ships were different. They had been modified. Every cargo hold was filled with compressed data cores and bioweapons. The moment the hive mother began to consume them, the data cores activated. It was a virus. Not a biological virus. An information virus. It spread through the hive mother's neural network in seconds. The massive ship began to convulse. The smaller ships it had spawned stopped functioning. They drifted in space, dead. Impossible, a Concordat admiral whispered. Humans do not believe in impossible, Karn said. The hive mother tried to fight the virus. It tried to purge the infection, but the humans had designed the virus to be unkillable. It replicated faster than the swarm could delete it. It corrupted every system. It turned the hive mother's own biology against itself. 20 minutes later, the hive mother was dead. It hung in space like a massive corpse. The swarm fleet, cut off from their command structure, began to retreat. The human fleet pursued. They gave no mercy. They showed no hesitation. They hunted down every swarm ship that tried to escape and destroyed it. By the time the battle ended, the swarm had lost its entire attack force. The humans had lost 140 ships and 20,000 personnel. By Concordat standards, it was a horrific casualty rate. By human standards, it was acceptable. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge and surveyed the aftermath. Bodies and debris floated everywhere. Some of it was swarm. Some of it was human. Status report, she said. All 7 worlds in the refuge cluster have been evacuated, Park replied. 2 billion civilians are safe. The swarm's advance has been stopped. They are retreating across 3 sectors. Chen nodded. Send a message to the Concordat command. Tell them the mission is complete. Tell them we are ready for the next one. She turned to look at her crew. They were exhausted. Some were wounded. But they were proud. They had proven something today. Not just to the galaxy, but to themselves. You all did well, Chen said. The galaxy forgot what humanity could do. Today, we reminded them. But more importantly, we showed them why we do it. We did not fight today for glory or revenge. We fought to protect people who could not protect themselves. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us human. On Haven 7 station, the Concordat commanders watched the human fleet regrouping. They saw the damaged ships. They saw the casualty lists. They saw the terrible price the humans had paid. They also saw the results. The swarm was broken. For the first time in 2 years, the Concordat had won a major victory. They are magnificent, one admiral said. They are terrifying, another replied. They are both, the Karn said. And they are on our side. Finally, across the galaxy, word of the battle spread. The swarm had been defeated. The impossible had happened. And everyone knew who had made it possible. The humans had returned to the galaxy. And they had brought war with them. 6 months had passed since the Battle of the Refuge Cluster. The war was not over, but it had changed. The swarm was no longer advancing. They were retreating. Humanity had shown the galaxy how to fight them, and the Concordat forces were learning. Admiral Chen stood in the garden on the human colony ship Genesis. It was a smaller garden than the one she had back on Earth, but she had managed to grow roses here too. She tended them carefully, finding peace in the simple act of caring for living things. A message came through her communicator. Admiral, the Concordat Council is ready for you. Chen put down her gardening tools and changed into her dress uniform. The medals on her chest felt heavy. Each one represented a battle. Each battle represented thousands of lives lost. The council meeting was held via hologram. Chen stood in a projection chamber, while images of 200 alien representatives surrounded her. It felt strange, being watched by so many eyes. Chancellor Vex Thor spoke first. Admiral Chen, we have gathered to address an important matter. The war with the swarm continues, but the situation has stabilized. Your forces have been instrumental in this change. We owe humanity a great debt. We did what was necessary, Chen replied. Indeed, Vex Thor continued. Which brings us to the purpose of this meeting. We must decide humanity's place in the galaxy going forward. The quarantine was imposed 500 years ago. The question now is whether it should continue. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives argued for lifting the quarantine completely. Humans had proven themselves as allies. They had saved billions of lives. They deserved to be part of the galactic community. Others argued for maintaining the quarantine. Humans were too dangerous. Yes, they had fought for the Concordat, but they had done so with horrifying efficiency. They did not fight like civilized species. They fought to destroy completely. What would happen if humans ever turned that violence against the Concordat itself? Chen listened to it all in silence. She heard fear in their voices. Even gratitude was mixed with terror. The galaxy did not know what to do with humanity. Finally, Vexithor asked her to speak. Admiral Chen, you have heard our concerns. What do you say to those who fear humanity's violent nature? Chen took a moment to gather her thoughts. Then she spoke clearly and honestly. You called us monsters 500 years ago. You were right. We are monsters. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight, to never give up, to destroy anything that threatened us. That is our nature. We cannot change what we are. She saw many representatives nodding. This confirmed their fears. But, Chen continued, you need to understand what kind of monsters we are. Yes, we are violent. Yes, we are aggressive. Yes, we fight in ways you find horrifying, but we choose where to direct that violence. We choose who to protect and who to destroy. She gestured to the data displays, showing casualty reports. In the past 6 months, human forces have lost 60% of our deployed personnel. 60%. We knew the risks. We came anyway. Why? Because billions of innocent people needed protection. Because we could make a difference. Because it was the right thing to do. But what happens when you decide we are not worth protecting? A representative asked. What happens if humanity turns against us? That is the question, is it not? Chen said. You are afraid that the monsters you unleashed will turn on you. It is a valid fear. Let me tell you what happens if you try to cage us again. If you reinstate the quarantine, if you push us away after everything we have sacrificed, then yes, you will have reason to fear, because we will remember that. We will remember that we bled for you, died for you, and you still rejected us. The chamber was silent. But, Chen continued, her voice softening, if you accept us, if you let us stand beside you as equals, then you will have the most loyal allies in the galaxy. We do not abandon our friends. We do not forget those who trust us. You asked us to be your monsters. We agreed. Now you must decide if you can live with that choice. Ambassador the Karn stood up. I would like to speak. Vexthor nodded permission. I have fought alongside humans for 6 months, the Karn said. I have seen them in battle. I have seen their brutality. I have also seen their compassion. Let me share something that happened 3 weeks ago. He activated a holographic recording. It showed a human medical ship at a refugee station. A human doctor, Commander Sarah Martinez, was treating alien civilians. The refugees were terrified of her at first. Humans scared them. But Martinez worked patiently, gently. She saved dozens of lives that day. The recording showed a small alien child, barely old enough to walk. The child had been injured in an attack. Martinez treated her wounds and stayed with her until her parents were found. When the parents arrived, they were crying with gratitude. The child hugged Martinez before leaving. This is humanity, the Karn said. Yes, they are warriors, fierce ones, but they are also healers, protectors, friends. They are what we needed them to be. The debate continued. Some representatives remained unconvinced, but slowly, others began to speak in favor of humanity. They shared their own stories. Human soldiers who had defended their worlds, human engineers who had helped rebuild destroyed stations, human diplomats who had negotiated fair treaties. Finally, Vexthor called for a vote. The question is simple. Do we lift the quarantine and grant humanity full membership in the Concordat? The vote took an hour to complete. Chen watched the numbers change on the display. It was closer than she had hoped. Many species still feared humanity, but in the end, the result was clear. The quarantine was lifted. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Concordat, but there was one additional clause. One that made Chen smile despite herself. Humanity will be granted a permanent seat on the Security Council, Vexthor announced, with full veto power over military operations. This is not just an honor. It is a practical necessity. We need human input on military matters. We need their expertise, and we need to ensure they are always part of the decision-making process. You want to keep us close, Chen said, so we never have reason to turn against you. Yes, Vexthor said honestly. Is that acceptable? It is practical, Chen replied. We understand. Trust must be earned. We are willing to earn it. The meeting ended. Chen returned to her ship. Her senior officers were waiting for her with champagne. We did it, Captain Park said. We are part of the galaxy again. At what cost? Chen asked quietly. The celebration stopped. Everyone knew what she meant. 60% casualties, 30,000 dead, 50,000 wounded, entire ships lost with all hands. The price of acceptance had been written in blood. They died protecting people who needed them, Commander Torres said. He had lost his son in the Battle of the Refuge Cluster. That is a price worth paying. Chen nodded slowly. Yes, but we must never forget it. We must never forget what it cost to prove we were more than monsters. 3 months later, Chen attended another ceremony. This one was on Earth. The Concordat had sent a delegation to visit humanity's homeworld. It was the first time aliens had been allowed in the Sol system in 500 years. Ambassador the Karn stood in the same garden where Chen had been when this all started. He looked at the roses with his compound eyes. They are beautiful, he said. Thank you, Chen replied. I have been growing them for years. They require constant care. If you neglect them, they die. If you try to force them to grow too fast, they die. You must be patient, gentle, understanding, an interesting hobby for a warrior. The Karn observed. I think it is necessary for a warrior, Chen said. I need to remember that not everything requires violence to thrive. Sometimes, the most important victories are the quiet ones, the gentle ones. 4-1. They walked through the garden together. In the distance, they could see a playground. Human children and alien children were playing together. It was supervised carefully, of course. Everyone was still learning how to coexist. "Do you think it will work?" the Karn asked. "Humans and aliens living together?" "I think it must work," Chen replied. "Because the alternative is unacceptable. We almost destroyed ourselves before we reached the stars. We almost killed each other over differences far smaller than what separates our species. If we cannot learn to live together, then all of this was for nothing. The swarm is still out there," the Karn said. "The war is not over." "No," Chen agreed. "But we are winning. Slowly. Together. That is what matters." A young girl ran up to them. She was human, maybe 6 years old. Behind her was an alien child from the Chilleri species, the same as the Karn. The two were holding hands. "Are you Ambassador the Karn?" the human girl asked. "I am," the Karn replied. "My friend's name is Krita. She does not speak English very well yet. Can you tell her that I think her shell is pretty? I tried, but I do not think I said it right." The Karn translated. The alien child's shell brightened with pleasure. She chirped something back. "She says your hair is beautiful." The Karn translated. She has never seen yellow hair before. The two children ran off together, laughing. Chen and the Karn watched them go. "That is the future," Chen said. "Not soldiers or politicians. Not councils or treaties. Just two children who do not care about the past, who see a friend instead of a different species. It is a good future," the Karn said. "Worth fighting for. Worth dying for," Chen corrected gently. They stood in silence for a while, watching the children play. Around them, the garden bloomed. The roses opened their petals to the sun. Life continued. Despite everything. Because of everything. The galaxy had learned what humanity was capable of. They had seen the violence, the ferocity, the refusal to accept defeat. They had seen the monsters, but they had also seen the compassion, the sacrifice, the protection of the innocent. They had seen the heroes. Humanity was both. They always had been. The galaxy had just needed to be desperate enough to look past their fear and see the complete picture. In the end, that was the real victory. Not the battles won or the swarm defeated, but the acceptance, the understanding, the chance to be part of something larger than themselves. The children's laughter echoed through the garden. And for the first time, in 500 years, humanity was home.